My name is Amy Bitterman, and I am a Senior Study Director in the Education Studies practice at Westat. So we welcome all of you to, this is the second in a series that Westat is hosting of webinars called Asking the Experts. We're hosting these quarterly, and these are discussions on important issues that are occurring throughout the year. And we want to bring together experts with many different perspectives and ideas to really shed light and offer approaches to tough challenges in the health, education, social, and economic policy areas. So I am so pleased to welcome you to today's webinar featuring a panel of experts who will be discussing the framework that the U.S. Department of Education's National Comprehensive Center developed called Circles of Reflection. And Circles is a process for facilitating collaboration and meaningful conversations between state education agencies, school districts, and tribal education departments. And it's really a series of gatherings or convenings that starts with bringing in high-level state staff to talk about their current level of effort and what they're doing to support Native student learning. And then representatives from tribes and districts, they join in to react to what the state has said, to validate, add to, clarify, add questions about what the state shared. And then finally, it culminates in all of the participants coming together to identify priorities, create 90-day action plans, and also identify longer-term goals. And before we get into our panel, we are so fortunate to be joined by Julian Guerrero, Jr., Director of the Office of Indian Education at the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, for a few opening remarks. Mr. Guerrero brings expertise on how to build and sustain meaningful partnerships with tribal communities. And as the Office of Indian Education Director, he reports on and advises the Assistant Secretary on programs including the Indian Education Program of ESSA. Mr. Guerrero is an enrolled citizen of the Comanche Nation and affiliated with the Kiowa Nation. Julian, thank you so much for joining us and providing some context and background about why Circles of Reflection can really make a difference in Native education.
All right. Well, thank you, Amy, so much. I appreciate that. And I promise to be brief this morning or afternoon if you're on the East Coast with me. My name is Julian Guerrero, Jr., and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of the Office of Indian Education, as Amy just mentioned. And as the OIE, we're in an incredible place in a moment in time right now where we strongly value and sometimes require partnership in many instances. And I see the Circles of Reflection as a positive tool for partnership, creating partnership, sustaining partnership, addressing situations adverse to that partnership, such as employee turnover, which happens so often, unfortunately, burnout. And just starting a conversation can be so hard at times because we all go into a certain space with different perspectives, different requirements, different rules, and different lingo. And a Circles of Reflection tool helps kind of coordinate those partnerships and that communication to be one approach. And there's a lot of healthy amount of information in this work and a lot of perspectives to unpack. And I welcome and I'm so thrilled to see today's panelists, who I revere as good colleagues of mine, Rich and Regina and Jackie. And I'd like to kick off with the sentiment that, we're all interested in advancing this work and seeing, not only to advance OIE's goals and mission to help sustain community collaboration. One of OIE's values is creating a community of collaborators more than competitors. I want us to all see each other as colleagues versus competitors. And I feel that this tool can really help us move that forward and is very instrumental in addressing tribal state communication, collaboration, and in some spaces, consultation. And increasing the tribal voice is paramount in this effort. And through consultation, listening sessions, however it is and however it's done, it's essential that we make sure that we remind ourselves of the requirements in the Every Student Succeeds Act and the various title programs that affect and impact Native students throughout Indian country. And let's not forget that, again, we speak and we come from different perspectives, but the mission at hand, the work at hand is so valuable to us because the work that we do empowers tribal sovereignty. It helps build the future of tribal nations, and that's at the forefront of our work. And there can be no exceptions. There can be no alternates to this. And this I care deeply about, and so does the Office of Indian Education. And as we lift up this work and we try to identify ways that we can improve it, please, for those joining virtually today, I welcome you to be a part of this conversation, to be a part of this development, because this is exciting work to sustain and continue and get past those common barriers that impact us all. So I will stay on for the remainder of the webinar, but at this time, I will turn it back over to Amy. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Julian, for that background and priorities of the OIE and setting the stage. So just a little bit more background about this work. The National Comprehensive Center, which Westat directs, is tasked with developing and disseminating resources to help build states' capacity to more comprehensively support Native education through that important collaboration with districts and tribes that Julian was talking about. And also, in particular, circles can serve as a model for states and districts to use to support the implementation of that requirement that Julian also referenced under the Every Student Succeeds Act, that they consult with tribes about the education of Native students. And from development to implementation of circles of reflection and every step along the way, we've brought Native voices into this work. We developed the circles of reflection based on a need sensing and a lot of input we've received from our expert panel of Native educators and also a wonderful group of consultants who worked with us, most of whom are Native. Circles is really a series of guided discussions that happen over the course of a few months, really starting with the state education agency and then bringing in districts and tribes to contribute their perspectives. And the goals are to reveal what states and locals are really doing or not doing to ensure high quality learning experiences for Native students. And then once that assessment and self-reflection has happened, kind of coming together to determine what are some priorities we need to focus on, and then creating and implementing those plans to start to try to improve Native education. So Oklahoma is one of the 4 states, along with Washington, Idaho, and North Carolina, that piloted the Circles of Reflection process. So we have joining us on our panel several Native educators from Oklahoma who took part in the process, so they can talk about their experiences, lessons learned, and what's happened in the time since they were part of the circles. So I'm going to start off with introducing our panelists who work very closely together in Oklahoma and represent each of those 3 groups that are part of circles: the state education agency, school districts, and tribes. So Jackie L. White is the executive director of the Office of American Indian Education for the Oklahoma State Department of Education. She oversees the work of the office, providing guidance and leadership to local education agencies that seek partnership with any of the 39 sovereign tribal nations in Oklahoma. Her mission is to sustain lifelong education benefits for tribal citizens in the Oklahoma K-12 public education system. Welcome, Jackie. We also have Regina Riley, who's the Higher Education Director for the Iowa Tribe of Oklahoma. Ms. Riley provides a multifaceted approach to program development and implementation, focusing on serving underrepresented communities. For the Iowa Tribe of Oklahoma, she manages scholarship, job placement and training, and college preparation programs, as well as the public library. And finally, we have Rich Pawpa, who is the Indian Education Coordinator for the Broken Arrow Public Schools. He's worked in education as a teacher, special education coordinator, curriculum coordinator, and assistant director over the past 15 years, focusing on educating disadvantaged youth. He is a member of the Citizen Powhatan Nation. So thank you all for being here. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So Jackie, can you tell us, as the Native Education Director in Oklahoma, why was Circles of Reflection something you felt was important to champion in Oklahoma? What were you really hoping to get out of it?
Well, the name Circles of Reflection is a true indicator of what I wanted to see, which is creating a dialogue and communication among the state. For those who don't know, Oklahoma has over 502 school districts, public school districts with 39 tribes. And in an effort to figure out how to reach out to everyone, as a former school administrator, we had to sit back and take a look at us at the State Department. And I think that self-reflection of what we thought, perception is real. So when with Circles of Reflection, we had to answer our own questions about how we felt we had communicated. What made it even more interesting is that when we reached out to the tribes and to schools, they had to judge us and let us know what they thought, how we were doing. So it goes back to self-reflection. Sometimes we think that we're doing a great job communicating, and sometimes we need to do it in a different way. As a former educator in public schools, I've always said one size does not fit all. And we have to look at all tribes in Oklahoma. We have some that are very small and some that are very large. And sometimes you have to go about that dialogue in a different way. So I really am appreciative that Circles of Reflection was offered in Oklahoma, because it gave us a baseline to begin making changes on how we could reach out to the different groups across Oklahoma. But I think communication and dialogue was critical from my perspective. And again, I've been on the other end as a school administrator. So I look back at and thinking, what would I like for us to do? So, but Circles of Reflection, the whole process would be beneficial to not just school districts, but also to tribes and to about every group I know could take that same process and expand and improve the way they communicate.
Thank you, Jackie. So now, Regina, can you talk about, as Jackie mentioned, we wanted this to be a mutually beneficial process for everyone involved. So in your role with the Tribal Education Agency, why did you decide to be part of Circles? What were your hopes to accomplish through being part of it?
Well, I think the first and primary reason that we participated is because we're a very small tribe. We're a very small tribe, and sometimes we miss that invitation to be at a stakeholders table, just for the simple fact that, we're in a rural part of Oklahoma and we're small, and maybe it's unknown the contribution that we could have. So I think that was like the first reason why we wanted to participate, was just to have that place at the stakeholders table. And my expectations, I wasn't for sure. We knew we wanted to learn from others, and we needed to be there, but we weren't really for sure what was going to happen. So it was a very pleasant surprise how everything went down. And I think just coming together like that was the very first time that we had experienced sitting with school districts, sitting with tribes, other tribes, and sitting with the State Department. So it was great.
Thanks. Rich, same question to you.
Just to piggyback on what they're saying is, we're a large school district, over 20,000 students. And I've always tried to work closely with my peers, whether it be on the district level, state level, or tribal level. I felt this process would help, provide a possible blueprint to help facilitate a more culturally responsive learning environment for our Native youth. I always feel our Native communities are continually searching for opportunities to revitalize themselves. So by taking part in this project, I hope that this would provide the needed support to be successful, to improve our Native student outcomes. Like I said, my expectations of this project, it was just to hopefully just impart that collaborative knowledge, if constructively, between the state, the tribe, and our district, so just to provide a better understanding of it, so that. Like I said, in the end, we could improve our student outcomes in a positive way.
So all of you were sharing your kind of hopes and dreams for this, and we'll hear a little bit more about if some of those materialized. But first, getting into the actual Circles experience and process, Regina, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us from your perspective and your role and who you kind of were representing? What was the experience like? What did you learn? What did you take from it?
Well, it was funny that Jackie had mentioned internal reflection, because even a tribe coming to that table, we were also, it was a very internal reflection for us just coming to the table. And and then learning to measure the state programs based on what our experiences were and how we were actually involved at that time. So it was interesting, and it was new. It was a new process. And we actually had to learn how to active listen to others, but also find a voice. And so the framework was very nice because it pushed us into situations and conversations that were guided, and we may have been stalled out. We may have stalled out. There was so much to address. There was so much to focus on, and everybody coming in with a different perspective. The framework broke it down. It was easy. We did circle 1, which built on to circle 2, which built on to circle 3. And at the end, you could look back and see, oh, well, this is how it all flowed. This is how it all went together. I don't know if we're supposed to share exactly what I did like, but I loved the idea bank. And still to this day, I use those as resources within the collaborations that I do with school districts. So I think not only as a group moving forward, but there was something that us as a tribe was able to take away and use that in our future endeavors. So that was also, it was great for the group, but also great individually.
Fantastic. And thank you, Regina, for mentioning that. And maybe, I don't, if someone might be able, Liz, to pop a link in the chat to our website. That includes the idea bank that Regina mentioned, which are resources that we pulled together and developed to be able to use beyond circles, but also as a way to have something in place when we're having these conversations. And, well, maybe we're not doing great in the area of native language and culture, but here's some sources we can go to, some opportunities to get more information and learn more about that area. So I just wanted to interject quickly there. So Rich, can you share a little too about your experience as part of Circles?
Yes, I too like the idea bank there because it is even now helping me with the project I'm doing right now. But because there's so many people and programs out there, like you as stated before, which can help you to both in and out of the classroom. Because with these idea banks, I've been able to apply the knowledge learned in these sessions that I've been having with tribal leaders, our state representatives. I just, like I said, wanted to apply the knowledge that I gain out of speaking with the different entities, and which is everything's about impacting and inspiring our students, to be the best versions of themselves, whatever that is. So, and I just say that we all know that a well-rounded, culturally responsive education is a game changer for all our children. And it's very critical for our Native youth. So by us being able to collaborate and utilize some of the tools that were provided by the Circles of Reflection, it's helping me as a district move forward to provide better services for our students. So.
Wonderful. All right, Jackie, do you want to share from the state perspective? And especially I'm curious in hearing, as being fortunate enough to sit in on these circles and listen to what was going on, just some of the aha moments and what really the state participants seemed to get out of this.
My opinion is the Reginas of the world and the Rich of the worlds are the change makers. We at the State Department need to be that leader that helps them facilitate and support them as these changes come about. And you're right, there were so many moments that everyone goes, oh my goodness. And I think, and I'm just going to make a statement, I'll talk about it at the end, but we've carried that on, that moment where we're still sharing and have expanded that Circles of Reflection procedure. And I'll talk about what I do at the end to say, well, Regina, that's a great idea. Could you share that with so-and-so? And other tribes are sharing other ideas. And I think a real key to it also was, as we expanded what we learned with 5 tribes and 6 schools, and that's a small number for a state of 502 schools and 39 tribes. What we discovered was that we needed to create a way, or I did, so that tribes talk to each other through us, me, State Department, and that schools that we shared ideas. I've always of the opinion that one idea can change everything you do. I mean, I'm like these two guys. Who would have thought that beginning? It was fair. That first session where we at the State Department had to assess self was tough, and it was even worse whenever the schools and the tribes came in and scored us again. And trust me, everyone on this participant group, we did not match. We very rarely matched with the perception that we were good. We were sort of good or we weren't good. But you have to also be adult enough and professional enough to accept the fact if someone says, hey, this isn't happening, but here's a way to fix it. So that was the good part about it, that as we looked at everything, then we came up with how can we make a change, a positive change, so that myself as a State Department official and my peers can support the tribes and the schools in Oklahoma. So there were a lot of aha moments where, but it was okay. It was a sharing and helping each other.
Thanks. Yes, very much a learning experience. And I think one of the things I saw too, what Regina mentioned, is knowing kind of when to be active listeners versus when it was your time to share. And I think with the state folks, especially in that first circle, we wanted them to speak and discuss and describe, but then really sit back and listen and take in some hard, very honest feedback during that second circle. So there was definitely a lot of learning and sharing. Wonderful. So now, Jackie, back to you. Can you talk about some of what's come out of circles, some of the benefits, maybe shorter term, as well as some of the longer term impacts that you've seen now that it's about a year out from when we completed the circles process?
Well, I think one of the greater ones is the fact that you don't know what perception is or what individuals need unless you're out there or you ask them. So once a month, we have a open Zoom, and I reached out and invited all tribal leaders, all their educational leaders, and all the schools in Oklahoma who wanted to participate. For those who don't know, Oklahoma has more Title VI programs than any state in the nation. Our last count, and I don't know what the new count is, it was over 402. So what we needed to do was share ideas. And during that Zoom, we might start out with welcome. I want to make sure all tribal educational leaders were introduced so that we knew who they were as public school individuals. And then we always try to feature at least 2 to 3 tribes in that hour and a half Zoom, because I didn't know what all Regina did. And I've been in education a long time. I know that the other tribes were beginning, and I'll just give you a good example. The absentee Shawnee, they were on our Zoom one day, very small tribe, and he had opportunities he could offer all across Oklahoma. We did not know that about each other. And so taking that same process of talking to each other and reaching out, we've really created a dialogue, and it's not perfect. We're still working on it. And if you ever say you're totally done and you've completed everything, you've not reached out far enough, because it's a revolving door of knowledge. And I think to the language part that we discussed in our circles of reflection, we currently have another tribe that is in the process of creating a language program through their tribe, and they'll go on and be certified through the state of Oklahoma. And we have a bill that's out there. So through the circles of reflection, I think that's what we've done. We've reflected to each other. And we have a lot to do, but we've really, I think, done a lot in a short period of time. And there's some areas that I'm still wanting to create and clean up, and that's the webpage. I want it to be one-stop shopping. I want anybody in Oklahoma to be able to go to the Indian Education webpage at the State Department and get linked to social studies and to all departments, and that it's not hard. So, like I said, I have a lot to do. I have a lot to do.
Yes, you're a very busy lady. And I think what you were mentioning corresponds to some of those areas that were identified for sure in circles of reflection. In that third circle, those priority areas, the website I know is one, and the culture and language pieces. So all of those, of course, are still in progress, but hopefully Circle sort of has helped push those along.
Oh no, it has. No doubt.
Great. So Rich, what have you seen as the benefits of this process?
First, like I said, I'd like to commend Miss Jackie White. I've known her a long time, and having her on board at the state level, it's been a game changer because of what she just spoke about, the starting the conversations between the tribes, the school districts, the local entities on how we can all possibly help each other one way or another. So that's been like I said, the biggest benefit that I've seen is I just want to see how we could collaborate better between the school districts, the states, and I feel like Jackie's saying we're on a good path. I mean, we have a good start to this process now. She said before, I mean, we have a monthly consortium meeting that allows everybody a voice. We have and even just with my own district, we're meeting weekly with our local tribal agencies to, figure out how best the tribal resources can help me here at our school district and our students. I mean, so those are lines of communication that weren't always open, but now it's just getting better. And like I said, I hope it continues because it's helping to increase, at least on my end, our student outcomes. So it's another way it's benefited me is through my teachers here. I have 7 teachers that are able to now reach out and utilize some of the tribal resources, some of our local Indian healthcare resources that we allow them to push into the classrooms, and through that collaboration, it has increased our students' achievement and performance, and their peer students' achievements. So it's just that's the way how I view the benefits of this long-term process and circle of reflection. So.
Thank you. It's so nice to hear, because often I think if it's like strategic planning or there's a kind of a one-time, event, and then it sort of gets put on the shelf, and it's great when it happens and it gets people excited, but it doesn't always sustain. And it sounds like certainly in Oklahoma, this work has continued and will continue. Regina, do you want to tell us about the benefits you've seen of this work?
All right. And I'd also like to comment about the framework again, because I think, yes, that participation in the consortium, the Indian Education Consortium that we do, has moved to be monthly. And I think it's crucial. We've just never been brought to the table on a regular basis together between tribes and school districts and the state. And so although Jackie brings tribes in to speak every month, and she's also having schools speak. So as a tribe, we often don't know what that looks like from a school district. So being able to hear those things, like, what does this look like to a school district, or what are your needs? What are your expectations? I think that consortium meeting really helps with that. And, I'll give a shout out to COVID as well. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but because of COVID, we were going into this and we're like, oh my gosh, we're going right into this during COVID. And, was it really going to work as effective as if we'd been in person? But, I think that those are the pluses from lessons learned during COVID. We all got online. We were all able to come. There was no mileage barrier. we could just get online and we were all there and we all met. And so now we're still doing the consortium online. And I know we like to do things in person, but school officials, they're busy. Tribal people, we're busy. And it's so much easier to do something regular when we could just log on and all be right there. So I think that the framework gave us a reason to do it and an organized way to perform it, that it's moving over to long-term effects of, why we should do it and in what format we should do it. I also want to put out a shout out to the data collection. It's improving in the state of Oklahoma, data collection, and also the data sharing between the state and the tribes. We now have contracts that we can enter in with the state to monitor the public school performance and the school enrollment of where our tribal members are at, to provide those targeted educational resources and support. So in the past, it had been just kind of left up to the schools to contact us. But now with these contracts, it's going to bring a new light to, we know where our youth are at, where our students are at. And, in a small tribe, if you have one student, you're important to us. If you're a school district with one student in southeastern Oklahoma State, part of the state, or in the northeastern part of the state, we want to know, we want to collaborate with you. We want to make sure that our tribal members are being served. And sometimes we can bring things to the table that are good for your entire Native education program or the entire school district as well. So those ESSA collaborations are really important in that way. And that data sharing is going to help. I really appreciate that.
And I think data sharing is certainly something we've heard as a big challenge in Indian country between tribes and districts and the state, and just trust issues and all kinds of things. So it's so wonderful to hear that that's going well. And that was also, I think, one of the areas that came out too from Circles of Reflection. I don't know, Jackie or Rich, if you have anything else related to the data sharing work that might be helpful for others listening in that maybe are struggling in that area.
Well, I think it's important as my role. We've passed a bill in Oklahoma, House Bill 1104, and it mandates that all schools in Oklahoma must enter into their student management systems those students that are Native American, and they must be a member of the federal or state recognized tribes. And in working with the data department, myself, we're going back out and visiting with all the vendors that have contracts in Oklahoma and saying, this is not an option. This is real, and you must provide input and support. So that's, as Regina said, I know Rich knows, as a large school district, it's not been an easy task, because the students don't always tell you that they are members of tribes. So, and we have a lot of biracial students in Oklahoma. So it's been a great effort across Oklahoma with all the school districts. But again, we talk about that at our Zoom once a month and I'm a part of the Zooms with the data team. So it's that collaboration at the State Department that must happen for us to reach out to all the schools and tribes to get the right information. But in that same bill, Regina stated, the tribes can go into contract with the State Department of Ed, the data department. And I think I have 4 to 5 schools right now. We're working on those contracts, and they will have access to those students that are members of their tribes' data information, because we're looking at dropouts. We're looking at kids that are in our gifted classes. We're looking at the whole child. What can we do to support those kids and celebrate the goodness and their successes, but at the same time, the dropout percentages are too high in a lot of my smaller schools, and we need to see what we can do and what the tribes can do to help us. So it's back to it's communication.
So I'm sort of keeping an eye on the chat, and there was a question that just came in specifically related to what you were saying just a minute ago, Jackie. So if it's okay, maybe we'll just go to that, which is, can you talk a little bit about the conversations with vendors that you're having in terms of requirements?
Okay. In Oklahoma, there was a law passed many years ago where all the student information goes through what we call the wave. But if you became a vendor in Oklahoma and provided student data software to schools, you must adhere to state law. If it's passed as a legislative item, those vendors have to support that change and cannot go back and charge schools additional costs because you've agreed to be a vendor. Well, investing with the Student Data Office, they have an individual that's now looking into the systems of all schools in Oklahoma, looking to see if they are in the process of entering that information in their student management systems. Rich, you're Infinite Campus, correct? So they're looking in Infinite Campus to see if Broken Arrow is doing that information. And then they are also looking to see what it looks like. And if they have schools that have certain vendors that have not provided that list of the federally recognized or state recognized tribes, the State Department is then reaching back out to those vendors because it's contract time. And that's when they're making sure that the contracts that they've signed off on are, they're doing what they've signed off to do, because 1104 is law in Oklahoma. So I work with that department in making sure that this is a process that's ongoing. That's just a part of our law, which is a good thing because it supports schools. And it's the data I need to tell legislators who call me how many students in Oklahoma are Native American in the wave. And it is considered our basis for information.
Thank you. And something else you just mentioned about your legislators. There was another question about including state legislators in these conversations and mentioning that securing funding is really, state funding has really helped with ongoing efforts in Montana.
Okay, in Oklahoma, the only funding schools get that are specific to Native American is Title VI or Johnson O'Malley. There is not a weightedness for a student in Oklahoma that would give any school additional funding. But the answer is yes, as far as legislators. In Oklahoma, by law, and I've got to go back, I think it was 2011, a law was passed and put into place that there would be an advisory board. And that advisory board is made up of appointments from the governor's office, higher ed, the American Museum. There's several different departments. I could go on, but it's a committee of 18. And they meet with me quarterly as a designee from the state superintendent. And we talk about needs across Oklahoma. And again, as a state person, I have to be careful of my role, but these individuals come from different groups. And we did have a senator this last legislation who put in a bill to streamline that board. So when you ask me, do I have supports? The answer is yes. We have an individual that's in Oklahoma right now that sent me an email the other day where she was CCing 4 to 5 legislators in Oklahoma of what I was doing across the state. So the word is out there. Support, funding, no, we don't have any specific to Native American students other than what each school gets. That's why schools are, what's critical for me to make sure that all schools include our Native kids under Title I, Title II, Title III, which is mandated under Title VI, that we do collaboration and that we tell our Native families how we serve our kids in federal programs. And I'm actually attending a lot of those across Oklahoma this week. And I know that Julian is still listening, but that comes out of his department that we should tell our parents how important their kids are in that collaboration. It can't be a separation of Title I, Title II, and all that. These are about kids, no matter what their ethnicity is. So, Rich, did that make sense as a public school person?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey. So what would you say are your kind of biggest hopes and dreams and goals for moving this work forward? Rich, I'll start with you.
Well, it's just a continuation on it. It's the communication in between, like I said, our school districts, our tribal, our local tribes, and tribes outside of, our state are increasing. This process has also helped me in, even though Jackie was talking about funding, is, securing some outside funding for as far as grant writing and whatnot. People are stepping up, offering to help do some grant writing for my program and whatnot. So it's allowing me to, I'm trying to, in the process right now of developing a summer program, an SEL camp, and it's taking, like I said, a village. It's taking the whole tribe, basically. Our local tribes are in on it. Jackie is in on it. We have our local Indian Healthcare Resource Centers, this district. We are trying to put on in the elementary, middle school, and the secondary camps that are just centered around the SEL for, because we're hoping to identify our Native American students that need this social emotional support, and and hope we want to provide that needed therapy service for those students identified. And this whole process has helped in making this a reality here at our district. So, I just wanted to continue to keep growing. Because it's been beneficial for our district as a whole, is what I'm going to say. So.
Great. Regina?
I'd like to just kind of piggyback on that. And so, like, our hopes as an initial participant is that this Circles of Reflection framework grows and moves those discussions forward. So using the same framework, but maybe in program development, you want to look back after 5 years and see what the progress was, and maybe bring new people to another circle. I'd like to see another circle in about 5 years, just to kind of, I think that would really make things sustainable. And I think that the Circles of Reflection was framework like we'd never seen before. So having the moderator come in and be the glue between all the stakeholders, that was really, really good. I don't know if we would have progressed as much, gained so many specific 90-day goals and long-term goals, if it hadn't have been for the framework and the moderators. But just coming off of that, communication. The communication is making sustainable efforts. So you can have all the great plans in the world, but if you're not communicating, and then those monthly communication meetings just really, really help. Because from time to time, I hear us talk, Jackie will talk back about, in Circles of Reflection this, or update on the goals of the Circle Reflection. So it's accountability. So we're getting that accountability in those monthly consortium meetings. But just from those things growing, I know the director of the Student Preparation for College Readiness in the state of Oklahoma Regents reached out to us, and they wanted to know about our in-print college fair, and they took that little in-print college fair. It was a COVID relief thing that we did for our tribal members in our local school districts, but are now implementing that to give out to the counselor workshops and things that they do. So, what you do may be relevant to somebody else, but unless you have a platform and a framework to share that, things get missed because, it's just, something that we are doing. But, and even off of that, we're moving forward, just the local tribes. We've met now twice. Our local tribes to our borders have met to discuss ESSA and collaborations and Native education, things that are important to us, and how the successes and strategies that we use that maybe we would have never done outside of these Circles of Reflection or these consortium meetings. So I think that sustainability factor is there. It'll be exciting to look back after a few years and see how far we've come.
Yes, I love the idea of doing more circles. I think we've talked, with all the states that participated in the pilot of this is something, trying to do. It's resource intensive. It does take time for sure to gather all of these people together, but trying to do it every so often, I think would be wonderful. So Jackie, what are your goals and hopes for this?
Well, first of all, I am my own worst enemy. I want things to go faster than they can. So these individuals sometimes say, it's okay, pace yourself, because I want to move forward quickly. But what you have to do is make sure that you're still on the same goals. But sometimes it's removing barriers. Why is it not moving forward? What are we doing that we should do differently? And I think that's that communication that we've established with our group. About the time I think I'm scared that nothing is going forward. Friday is Native American Day here in Oklahoma, with a partnership between the Absentee Shawnee and the Thunder. And back to our visiting with each other and talking and explaining what we need to do. I was afraid we would only have around 200 to 300 registered to attend. We now have 31 booths that will be set up that are representation of tribes in Oklahoma booths. We have 1,000 kids and teachers that have registered that will be in Oklahoma City on Friday, being able to go to those booths and find out a little bit about themselves and about being Native American, going to the museums. We have over 650 of those same students that will be attending the Thunder ball game that night. And some of our kids from rural Oklahoma would never get to do that. But it's back to the Absentee Shawnee was invited to participate in the Circles of Reflection Zoom that we have once a month, to talk about what he can offer to the state, because he can go anywhere. You don't have to just be a member of his tribe. So it proved that we need to keep talking to each other. We need to keep sharing ideas. And if we have a barrier, we need to figure out, what do we do to eliminate the barrier? Or is the barrier saying to us, back up and do it differently? So the dialogue alone, me personally, I'm still focusing on reaching being with all 39 tribes and participate in their dialogue. And I also want to get my webpage up. I've got my handbook up, but it needs to be updated already because there's been changes. But it's communication and it's being critical of each other in a professional way. Sometimes we have to sit back and say, yeah, we didn't do that very well. Or, oh, I can do that differently. And my last statement is, and always be respectful of tribes and schools, because we're not all alike. And I think respect of each other is critical as we expand this Circles of Reflection.
Yes, absolutely. Those are very accurate and appreciated words, Jackie. We did have a couple questions that have come in. Someone wants to know how the outcomes of these circles of reflection are being disseminated or communicated down through the tribe schools and to the students themselves. Do any of you want to talk about how or if and how you've done that in your respective ways and organizations?
I'll start out and then I'll let them dialogue. It's back through communication. You have to be very careful as you work with individuals across, and this is an educator talking. One of the criticisms I've had of educators is our terminology. Sometimes we say things and our parents don't have a clue what we're talking about. And so sometimes print doesn't work. You can how many of you as parents out there get all these flyers and all this information from schools, and you look at it the last day before it's Friday? So I think it's back to communicating what we're doing and how we can do a better job of that dialogue. Have we posted it publicly? No. I think we're not ready yet. I think we still need to talk to each other. And we had to move really quick, everyone on this Zoom, because we didn't have a lot of time. We were pedaling. And Eventually, probably, yes, maybe it would be on my website of what we've done. And Rich and Regina may disagree with me, but I don't think we're ready for print. I think we're just now beginning to really open doors so that we can talk to each other. And a lot of that is generated from the Title VI applications that are out there with consultation and collaboration. I think we've really upped our game this year in our schools and our tribes to be a part of asking all the right questions to each other, no matter what tribe you're with. And I think that's a change that we've really worked on.
And I'd like to say, I think the information is being disseminated through this monthly consortium meeting that we participate in. It may not be published. It may not be, this is the goal, this is goal. But I think just from attending all the meetings myself, I think that it's sprinkled through the consortium meeting, which is in turn a tool for ESSA collaboration and consultation. And then just like the database, so like we're an individual tribe and the idea bank, we share that information during our consultations and where it's needed. Maybe not every school needs it. Maybe not every program needs it, but there's a lot of resources that we can share and link together. So I think it probably is being shared in a fluid type of response. But, you know, I know that like Jackie's at school districts. She's at this school district, that school district, you know, she brings us in on things like this school district contacts me all the time. Well, they'd like to know about this college preparation, or they'd like to know about this or that, or what you have to offer. So she's kind of been a real hands-on glue of supporting what we do monthly together. And I think that all of the things that she's doing, the goals, the short range goals and the 90-day goals and the long-term goals, I see it sprinkled quite a bit through all the different activities within the state. So.
Rich, anything to?
No, I agree with both of how they both have put it. I mean, because just being in and out of school, just here in Oklahoma, our crazy weather and the pandemic, COVID, we all managed like everyone else through phone calls, emails, and Zoom. The information is being passed along, but also agree with Jackie, yet we're not ready to put it necessarily in print. So, but if you attend the monthly consortium meetings, yes, you can leave there with your question answered or just something that you can utilize within your school district or your tribe. So.
One thing changed too. I know that in Oklahoma, there was not a list of who were the individuals responsible at every school for Indian education. And all schools in Oklahoma get Title I. So I reached out to the federal office for federal programs and asked them to include in their consolidated application a place where they could tell me who are the individuals responsible for Indian education at that school. And so that I had a list because I had no clue. You know, I knew so many of the administrators because that had been my previous role. But now I have a way to go into the single sign-on and I can look up and know that Rich is in charge of Native American education at Broken Arrow. Or if I log on to Union or to Hannah, and they had never done that for the Indian Education Office in the state of Oklahoma. So it was hard on my previous directors that worked prior to me on finding out who those individuals are. And that's updated every year. So that has really helped in reaching out. And I think too, also, we've had more principals and that have logged on to our consortium because due to budget cuts, so many of the small schools in Oklahoma, the high school principal might be that person responsible. And now they are, you know, when they get their application kicked back because they didn't do it correctly, trust me, guys, they get on the Zooms so that because they need help. And that's that communication that we're trying to create that will help each other. So, and that's something that my predecessors didn't have that I didn't know. I didn't have a clue who they were other than where I came in my area. So we made some changes there as well at the state level.
Thanks, Jackie. So it's coming up to the end of the hour. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Learned so much, hopefully, from one another. And just wanted to quickly just check in if anyone, Jackie, Regina, Rich, have any last words, anything you didn't get a chance to mention that you'd like to share with the group?
Listen, just listen. Just listen.
Definitely. All right. So thank you all for your time and for engaging and asking great questions. Please be on the lookout. We'll have future Asking the Experts conversations. Westat is doing these quarterly. Please take a look at our website, the Native Education Collaboration website, which has the idea bank that I know folks might have wanted a little more information about, but please take a look at it. And we're going to put our contact information up. So definitely reach out to myself if you want more information about the idea bank. Unfortunately, at this time, we don't have Circles of Reflection itself posted there. But if you do want to obtain it or ask more specific questions, please reach out to me and reach out to any of our wonderful panelists and Julian Guerrero, of course, for any questions or additional information, things we weren't able to get into today. So with that, just thank you all so much for your time, and hopefully we will be able to continue these really important, critical conversations in the future.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Regina, Rich, thank you guys so much.
Thank you both. Thank you all.